Good evening, everyone. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm reporting from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. We have a nice group of people here tonight for our special guest author, Joe Ross Davis. And we're very excited for this award-winning book. Here it is, The Madwoman of Preacher's Cove. And does that have a great look? I love that on the website you put the little Pulpwood Queen stamp. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your award. I know a lot of our authors are winning those Chanticleers. Anyway, what is going on in your world right now?
I'm not even sure we have time for me to tell you.
Oh, yes, we do. Come on, spill the beans.
Well, I am working on another book, of course. Actually, I finished it yesterday.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I've been working on it for a year, and so I finished it yesterday. And I'm working now on a book proposal for my agent to see if she likes it. Other than that, I haven't been doing much. I've just been writing.
Now that's a lot. That's a lot to write a book. I mean,
writing every day, and it's really been the most fun I've ever had writing a story.
Oh, well, we're going to come back to talk about that later because I want to know more about this new book. I always love it when people have something already on the back burner, ready to go once they get a book out. You know, Mark Childress once told me years ago, I go, what can I do to promote my book, my first book? And he goes, you know, you need to let it go to the world and you know, God's going to take care of it. Get started on the next one. Well, that was 2008. I haven't so congratulations on you getting that done. I have so many balls juggling. It's hard for me to focus on one thing, but that is quite an accomplishment. You've done a lot. Good for you.
Thank you.
Now we're recording this, so for people who are not familiar with you like we all are and your book, what I want you to do is first tell a little background about yourself, where you live. You know, we have you on Breathless Bubbles and Books this week. We've been having terrible time with the blog site about getting things posted. It's not because the authors aren't posting, it's they're not showing up for me. So, but we got it figured out, and I thank you for your patience. But what I want to hear is your backstory. So I'll let you go ahead, and I'm going to put you on speaker view so we can just see you. Okay?
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was born and I still live in Alabama. And my family came from southern Tennessee to Alabama. My great-grandparents came from Tennessee to Alabama, and that's where we've been. But I have literally lived all over the United States and abroad in Ireland. And so I've traveled a bit. I love traveling. I'm really not a good still person. I like to be moving, going, doing. And the only time that doesn't bother me is in the mornings when I write, and it seems like I can focus for 5 hours without moving much. But after that, I want to go and I want to get out and do things and go places. And I have 3 children, adult, grown children, who are all such a big help to me. And I also have 3 dogs. I have Murphy, who's my big Labrador, and I have Sophie, who is my little helpmate. She's a tiny little silver poodle. And I have Maddie, who is my little troublemaker, but she is about 9 pounds and she's adorable, but she is just a little troublemaker. She hides and she does things, and we discover these things later. So she's into everything, just like a little kid. And I've lived in the house I'm living in now. Belonged originally to my aunt and uncle, and they lived here for 50 years. And then when they passed, the house came to me. It's an old house with 2 stories, enormous rooms, and very difficult to keep clean. And the only good thing about the huge rooms is that you can't really see the dust when it gathers, because it tends to gather up top on the top boards. And so that's a plus for me. Uh, and I really love the elegance of this house because it is old, and my aunt loved antiques, and so I have all of her furniture.
Oh my.
And very little of my own. All of it belonged to her. And she was an entertainer. She was president of garden clubs and garden parties and everything you can think of. And she loved to have social gatherings. And in some of those gatherings, I would play the piano for them as entertainment. And so most of my childhood was spent in this house. And so I have fond memories of being here as a child and entertaining lots of women in their in their teas and party dresses. And so I had a sort of typical Southern Belle upbringing for this area. And I went from that to going to college. And I went to the University of Montevallo, which at the time was an all girls school. But a year into my being there, it was co-ed.
Oh, wow.
And so a big change for all of us who had been there for a year. And suddenly there were boys everywhere, and that was fun. And so I got my bachelor's degree there. I went to the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa to get my master's and my PhD. So I've spent a lot of time in school, but I was a teacher for almost 30 years. And so, it just seemed appropriate to keep going. And so I did. And it wasn't until maybe 2013 that I began to consider writing. I had always written for the local newspaper. Even when I was young, I wrote for the local newspaper articles mostly about animals and animals I'd found and animals I loved. And then I graduated from that to doing a column every week about current events around the area in Birmingham and my little town called Bessemer. And so I worked at the newspaper for a few years. And then when I finished my my doctorate, I was still teaching, but I wanted very much to write. And I retired from the college system in 2005 because my mother had dementia. And so she needed help in the daytime. And so I retired to take care of her. And I had a lot of help from my children who would come in. My younger son lived with us, and so he would watch her in the daytime, and I would write, and then we would, sort of switch up and take care of her. Um, Thankfully, she did not have to be in a nursing home. Uh, Maybe for a month, she was in a nursing home because she had surgery. But she spent the last years of her life in her home. And so, that was, and so we all lived together. And I wrote a book called Mother, Can You Hear Me? And it was about my experiences as a caregiver. And so I had that published, and it did pretty well for a little book about one woman trying to take care of another one. And so that was when I thought, okay, well, if I can do all right with one book, maybe there's another one. And I had started my first book, which was called Countenance. And I started that and then was busy and couldn't really get into it. I would write at night. And as anybody knows who's worked all day and tries to write late at night, it's difficult to get much accomplished. And eventually, after my mom passed away, I finished and got that one published. And so my writing really not took off, but it became a goal. It hadn't been a goal really before that time because there was no way to fit it into my schedule. And so when it became a goal, I became more productive and I spent more time at it and I studied it and I went to workshops. I went to Donald Moss's workshop on plotting and emotional craft and all of those things to tell me how to do what I needed to know how to do. And the thing is, for 30 years, I had been teaching English composition. And so, I'm reading all these things about complete sentences and good grammar, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got that. It's just, what do I do about, what do I do with a plot? How do I do that? And so after that, I just decided, okay, I can do this. If I really try, I can do it. And so that put me on the path that I've been on for several years, writing and trying to get published and trying to find an agent. And so that's my life. That's my big backstory.
Since you've been talking, I've noticed something I hadn't noticed before. One of my favorite people in the whole wide world is Cassandra King Conroy, and she's an Alabama girl. And I didn't realize how much your voice sounds like hers. So this moment, there is a definite sound from Alabama or Mississippi or whatever. Everybody, Louisiana, everybody has a little bit different type of inflections, but I see that now. my question is, if I have my PhD, did your students call you Dr. Davis?
No, my students called me Joy.
They did. They did. Because that's quite
Yeah, I taught, my specialty was developmental reading and English.
wow. Okay.
And developmental, they were college students, but they couldn't pass the entrance exam in their reading and their English. And so these are graduates
Oh,
who came to my classes because they couldn't pass the entrance exam.
it's hard to
And
believe. Hard to believe.
yeah, really, really. But, I did that for many, many years. And I found that if the students who came to me didn't want to be there, they didn't want to be in that class because they felt it was
Yeah.
demeaning. And so that they didn't want to tell other people that they were in the developmental classes. And so I thought of all different ways that I could make them feel comfortable. And one of the ways was just to introduce myself as Joy. And so, they were all shocked because a teacher had never said, call me by my first name. And, but I did, and it was a really successful move, I think, on my part, because they were comfortable. And if I gave them an assignment, I would say something like, let's try this. And so they became a group
Oh,
trying to get together to solve basic reading problems. And, you think, well, they're college students, they know how to read. Actually, they don't.
no, they don't.
They do not. And so my job was to teach them how to read a textbook from their major area. I was at a combined vocational technical school, and so there were different areas, and they would have to bring a textbook from their major area, and sometimes all of them would be from the same major. And that worked out well because they all had the same textbook. And it was really wonderful to me one day when I came in a little bit late, and I expected them to be loud and talking and having a good time. And they were loud, but what they were doing was all of them had their textbooks open and they were reading aloud, each one reading aloud. And they would stop and say, what is this word? And they were doing that with each other. And so I thought, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I
This
love
is what
that.
I need to do.
In fact, we started this writers club, and the one thing that is really kind of my own little problem that I have with a lot of authors is I have so many authors that say they don't have time to read. And I go, then how do you become a good author? I would love to have you, Joe Ross Davis, give a program on how to read, because people go, how do you read all those books? And I go, it's like anything you do. The more you do it, the better you get. I mean, I've been reading my whole life. So it's nothing for me to get through, 5 or 6 books a week when I'm in that zone. So think about that and we'll come back to that. But right now we want to talk about your book. Your book is pretty incredible. And
Thank you.
there was one thing that I found very interesting was just, I read all the little captions, the dedications, everything they put at the end. But there was something that you had here that just absolutely floored me, about this little, insert. I don't know if you can see this.
Let me get my copy. Hang on one second.
Because I really want to talk about that, because it sets the tone for everything that you're about to read. And I don't know how to explain what this is, but it's all about this story. And once you read the story, then it's kind of got you hooked. So I'll let you get the book. And is she coming back to it? And I love the quote. This is Alabama. Weird things happen. This is a James Spann, chief
James Spann, that's our meteorologist.
I just think that it catches you off guard when you first read the book, because you've read this little story about, this, the eye of God and the goddesses and all this thing that they're doing with these 20 people. But where did this all come from? Was this your time in Ireland?
Oh, no.
No.
Okay, about the Druids. Are you talking about the Druids? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It came from the fact that for about 3 years, I did an intensive study of the Druids, that culture, the Druids. There's a wealth of material available, but there's not much meat in it. And so there is a place in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, called Druid City.
Wow.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
And so there is a Druid City Hospital and a Druid City. And so, of course, I've been through there, but I did go there to the library, and there was just very little information. And so I actually contacted James Spann, who's the weatherman, and I asked him if he knew more about the history of Druid City than I had been able to find out in the library. And he said yes. And I said, well, you don't know who I am. I watch you all the time. I live in Alabama, and I dedicated my book to you. But I said, could you share some of what you have? And he did, very willingly. He told me things, and then, of course, I checked those against what I had. And I just, for some reason, was fascinated by that culture of people who history had claimed were violent people who loved human slaughter. And so I thought, that can't be the story. That just can't be the story. And so I researched and read and went to workshops and studied to find out more about that culture. And the more I found out, the more I thought they're not so different. And I can remember telling my brother had told me that they were pagans.
Yeah.
And I said, well, of course they were pagans. Jesus wasn't, he wasn't alive then, and they didn't know the word God. Nobody had ever said that word to them. They developed their own language. And I said, but they worshiped what they called beyond the hills, because they were often in hilly areas. And so all they knew was that they worshiped what was beyond the hills. And that touched me. It was like, okay, you know, they were a decent people. And I went to Ireland to attend a sort of festival. And I took my younger son with me. And while we were there, I met a man named Peter Tremaine. He is a mystery writer. His books have sold millions of copies. And he doesn't write necessarily about that time, but he was a professor. And one of the subjects that he taught was Druid culture.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, could that be any more serendipitous? But I met and talked to him, and he gave me some more insight, and it just became a subject that I was interested in, people that I wanted to know more about. And so it was at that time that I thought I wrote that little story long before I wrote Madwoman.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it just seemed appropriate. So I included it in the book. And there are things that play out throughout the book that have a connection to it. So,
Well, the wonderful thing about reading these books that touch on to stories that are from perspectives that I haven't heard before is I'm a big person that loves to go down rabbit holes. Because once I read books like this, I want to know more about, this Druid culture. I want to know more about, of course, growing up in the church, we were always told, pagans were kind of heathens, and
right,
and even
right,
my grandmother was a healer. She used lots of poultices and
right.
she
Yep.
was grew up in Missouri in the backwoods, and her family came from Ireland, and they a lot of people find when people heal with plants and herbs and different things a little scary, and there was nothing scary about her. I mean, I don't know how many times she gave me the Vicks vapor rub poultices.
Uh-huh.
Does anybody remember how they used to just coat your chest and your throat with that menthol stuff? It still cracks me up to this day. But I love this story. The story behind the story is fascinating. And so, how long
Thank
were you
you.
in Ireland?
I've been to Ireland 5 times.
Oh my goodness.
I lived there for um, probably 6.5 months
Wow.
at a stretch, and it was an incredible experience because I was there as a travel writer,
Right.
working for a company who needed articles about places that Americans who were visiting for the first time should visit.
Wow.
And that included restaurants and hotels and, places that Americans should consider staying that would immerse them in the Irish culture. And so it was uh, probably the world's best job
I bet. I'm
to
envious.
travel from one corner of Ireland to the other, and it was a grand experience.
No.
People were wonderful and helpful, and they thought that I was cute with my little voice and my little self, and they were just so willing to listen to me and
That accent, I'm sure.
right, to listen to me and then to say, "Oh, yeah, come," and they'd take me places, and uh, so it was just a grand experience.
Did you rent a little home, or did you stay in hotels, or what did you do?
Uh, thankfully, thankfully, I had a wonderful travel company, and it was the travel company I was working for. And so they paid for me to stay in different places. Some were hotels, some were B&Bs, some were people's homes, uh, where people said, we want her to come and stay with us for a couple of days. And so there was only one sort of off step I made in Donegal, which is at the top of Ireland. Um, and I made a sort of off the road stop at a little B&B in Donegal and stayed there for a couple of days. And I paid for it myself. So it was wonderful. So.
Both my grown children have been to Ireland and spent some time there. In fact, my oldest daughter got married there in Ireland, and my youngest daughter went on a people to people trip where she was gone all summer through all the UK. But she loved her time in Ireland, and she stayed with a family. And she said the only thing that was upsetting to her was they kept trying to make her spaghetti, because she said they kept thinking she'd want American food, and she did not.
Right.
My kids wanted to try foods from other countries, but most of the kids that were on their trip, they just wanted a hamburger, And so, but she still keeps in contact with the people there, and the girls that she met on that trip, they still are getting together every year and going on trips. They just got back from Disney World. So it's something that we want to do, Pulpwood Queens and our authors. We would love to go to Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Those are three I have not been to. So now what made you want to come back? I don't know if I want to come back.
Well, I have children and a mother and a brother. And so I really couldn't, I couldn't see a way to bring them over financially, and so.
And you have this ancestral home there too. That what time frame is your house that is it Victorian or is it pre?
The house I'm living in now was built in 1895.
Yeah. Okay. So I know the architecture. That's fascinating. Well, good for you. I'm sure the upkeep is amazing too.
Right.
Having had a historic home. So this story, how did this story come to you?
It came to me it came to me embedded in a different story. I had written this, I hate to even admit this, but I had written this 900-page epic about Preacher's Cove.
Wow. Wow. And there's going to be more books.
No, but I sent it. I have a friend who is a professional editor.
Yes.
And so I called him and told him that, I had this 900-page epic, and he said, "Joy, you'll never get that published." And so I said, "Well, I don't know what to do with it." And he said, "Well, send it to me, and I'll give you a few pointers." And so I did. I sent it, and he kept it for about 6 months.
Well,
and when he sent it back to me, he had cut everything but 450 pages. So he had cut half of it. And he said, "Here is your story." And so he had been able to do what I couldn't do. I couldn't see the forest for the trees. I couldn't, you know, break it down into what the actual story was. And the actual story is about Lucy Adams. And so when that became really clear, then I took what he did and I revised everything. And so it took about 4 years writing and then editing and then rewriting took another couple of years. And so I worked a long time trying to get Madwoman into the book it is now. It was never called Madwoman. It had an entirely different title. And but when I edited it down, I thought, yeah, that's a good title, The Madwoman. And so that's how it happened.
Well, I have a different mindset about a 900-page manuscript now, because I think about how Netflix has taken these series like Game of Thrones and, Gambit, all these things, and they're looking for source material for the stories that carry us through. You know, just don't get rid of it. You just never know.
Oh, I didn't get rid of it. I just kept it in a different file. It's somewhere.
900 pages, that's wild. Or, you wonder about people who write those books that are, series after series. And I've gotten hooked on a lot of those. And I think this, you never know if anybody's listening. This could be at 900 pages, you all. She's got stories. So I hope everybody's listening. But it's a great cover too. I mean, it
Thank you.
really, really grabs your attention. And it sets the tone just like the first story. And congratulations on and you've got Claire Fullerton on the back. You've got Johnny Bernhardt.
Right.
You've got
Kathleen.
wonderful Kathleen, all these wonderful quotes on the back. The one thing that being this is National Women's Fiction Day. And one of the things that, I wrote a blog about it today, because one of the things that I think is remarkable is that how all the women that are here tonight, and all of you, the connections that are being made on sharing these stories, and how as women, we've formed this really cool tribe. And nothing brings me bigger joy than watching all the posts that were going out today for National History, fiction, fiction day. So congratulations on that too. And I'm looking forward to your next book. So if for all those that are going to be watching this on our YouTube channel, y'all, this is one you will not want to put down. I mean, it's really remarkable. Now,
thank you.
Is there anything in particular you want to talk about of this book that people might not ask, or you feel like you want to share with the listening audience?
Well, the one thing that does come to mind is the relationship. People, rarely mention this, but the relationship between the Madwoman and her sister Libby. The two of them by themselves accomplish a great deal. But when they literally are charged with saving Preacher's Cove from destruction. And although they're close, they're sisters. Libby takes care of Lucy, who is the Madwoman. And, she keeps her out of contact with people who would say terrible things to her, or, make derogatory comments. And her sister Libby protects her from that. And those people who think negatively about Lucy don't consider the fact that underneath her disfigurement is an absolutely beautiful soul. And so, in her way, she is the most powerful woman in Preacher's Cove. And toward the end, when they must find a way to save the town, it is the bond between the sisters. They hug each other as they used to do when they were children. And only when they're hugging each other very closely are they strong enough to win the battle. And I don't think that's been mentioned before, and so maybe that doesn't come across. But to me, it's the core of the book, that these sisters unite to form a powerful force that will save all of their lives. So, okay, lecture over.
Oh, well, it just reminds me of when I was reading for the first time Practical Magic, by Alice Hoffman, the sisters. The bonds between sisters are, there's always, some type of sibling rivalry, whether you're brother, sister, sister, whatever, oldest, youngest, whatever. But when push comes to shove, it's your sister or your brother or your sibling that you find your strength. So I love that story. Now I want to open it up for anybody who wants to have conversation with you, Joy. And I hope as we talk and with everybody here, you'll also continue on with about your
What
next
is
book.
that? Oh, Cassandra. Uh-huh. That's beautiful, Kathleen.
Aw.
Thank you. I don't have that photo.
Oh, I'll send
Oh,
it
of
to you.
course.
You used to have it. I know you did. This is
Oh, that's
January
perfect. You
2020.
need to share that so we can share it on Breathless Bubbles and Books because you're our guest host. But Alabama girls, I'll never forget
Oh.
when Pat Conroy said, "Yep, I bet me I'm marry me an Alabama girl," and she is a storyteller, and you certainly are. So, anybody have any questions or comments for?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
Claire.
Yeah, I think Pat said that Cassandra was the finest thing to ever be grown on an Alabama peanut farm. I think the line was like that, which I love. But Joy, so nice to see you always.
Thank you, Claire. It's wonderful to see you.
Please refresh my memory. Was it this book that won 3 awards at the Chanticleer Conference?
Yes,
So-
it was, Claire.
So let me get that straight. Do I have the facts correctly that
You
the
do.
Madwoman of Preacher's Cove won 3 times? Do tell us what categories they won in, please.
Okay. It won the grand prize for paranormal fiction. The first place in paranormal fantasy and first place in supernatural fiction.
So that would be thrice, would it?
Yes. Yes.
Just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
How funny.
And Claire, you were there. Claire was there with Joy
She
and
was.
Joy's daughter, Heather.
Okay, my
Was
friend
there.
Kathleen is setting me up because I know you, sister. I know all about you, honey. Okay, so here's the story. So we shared a table with the women at the She Writes Press that asked Joy and I and Heather, who were like lost sheep, holding hands. We didn't know anybody. And all of a sudden they say, come sit down at this round table. So we're sitting there and Joy wins 3 times in a row. And these She Writes women are looking at her like, why did we invite you at our table? And so that was funny. But the funniest was Joy's daughter, Heather, who is the funniest human being I will ever meet in my life. She went into this, was it Gene Wilder and Gene Wilder and who?
I don't know. I can't
But
remember.
that's right, We Bad, that whole routine. And I'm telling y'all, she was doing this in the lobby. It was a stand-up comic routine, and it was like midnight, and Joy couldn't even speak because she'd won, let me say, thrice. And Joy couldn't even speak.
No.
And so Heather is doing this routine in the middle of the lobby. It was the funniest thing I have ever seen, with the facial gestures and the whole 9 yards. And I thought, I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life. But I can say I was there when Joy Ross Davis won thrice, and she couldn't speak, and Heather was doing a routine in front of
Right.
the lobby.
Exactly. Exactly. Well,
So
you know,
proud of you.
I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know what to say or what to do.
You didn't have to say anything because you birthed a baby that did it for you. It was,
Yes,
it was
she
priceless.
did.
Anyway,
Thank you,
okay,
Claire.
so that's it.
Thank you. Kathy Ramsberger, I'm so glad to see you. Did you
It's
hear me?
lovely. Yeah, it's lovely to see you, Joy. Hope you
I'm
had a
glad you're
wonderful
here.
day
And
today.
Eileen and Mandy, I'm so glad to see you. And Kathleen, bless your heart. Thank you for coming. Big heart.
I have a question.
Yes, Eileen.
I read your, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about your piano.
Yeah.
That was so interesting to learn that about you. But I think I missed the part, like, why did you stop playing? And now I hear the rest of your story, that you were a teacher and your developmental classes it's connected to some of the work that I did in my career. So, I really understand those people that you've worked with. And so, like, how did you segue from classical piano, entertaining your aunt's friends, to becoming a teacher of students that needed to have somebody help them really understand the written word, and now you're writing? That's like, I'm having trouble connecting all those dots.
Me too. No, well,
It's a
no,
great path.
I stopped the piano because I couldn't play. I just reached a point in my life after years of training and practice, and that was all that I had in my life was the piano. And I practiced all the time, every day. I didn't play outside with the other children because that didn't hold any interest for me. I was focused on that piano, and I played and I took lessons at the Catholic Church. I took lessons everywhere from different people. And my uncle brought somebody from Germany who was a famous pianist to be my instructor. And I took lessons from him for several years. But I auditioned, and of course that should have transferred to college. You spend your whole life doing a thing, and then when you go to college, my aunt and my uncle and my mother said, well, yes, you'll go and be a music major. And so I auditioned. I went to the audition to audition as a music major. And when it came my time, I walked out on the stage and sat down at the piano and put my hands on the keyboard, and I couldn't play a single note. It had vanished. All that time, the talent, the skill, it was like a void was there instead. And all I could do at that point was just get up and leave. I couldn't audition because I couldn't play. I couldn't remember enough to play. And I was devastated because that was my life. That was my goal. But at that point, I just couldn't do anything. And so, as you can imagine, there was a great deal of distress within my family. And so I thought, well, I can't play the piano, but I know a lot about English. And so I changed my major to English. And then one of my professors encouraged me to try for teacher education. And to keep my English major, I had a major in Spanish and a major in English and another major. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, he encouraged me to go into teacher education. And I didn't want to because I never thought about being a teacher. And about a month into my first teacher education class, the instructor came to me and asked me if I would be willing to teach for a week at a 7th grade class near my home, which is why he asked me and not the other students, just because it was near my home. It was Homewood Junior High School. And he asked me if I'd be willing to teach poetry to these students for a week because the teacher had been hurt in an accident
Oh my God.
and he needed a substitute, but he didn't want to pay for one. And because I was in class and a college student, they didn't have to pay me.
Oh,
You see how that works?
yeah.
They didn't have to pay me. So I said, okay, I'll try it. I mean, and the first day was probably one of the worst days I've ever had because I had no idea that most of my students would be 7th grade boys. Not that there's anything wrong with 7th grade boys, but these are 7th grade boys in English class.
Learning poetry.
Huh?
Right.
And they didn't really want to learn poetry that day.
Poetry class, right. They were supposed to be studying poetry. And so, you know, the first day I went and all I did was tell them to be quiet. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any feeling about maybe they'd like this or maybe that. So I considered it just a waste of time. But I went back the next day, and during the night I had this sort of epiphany, and I just sat straight up in bed and I said, I know, I'll teach them iambic pentameter, which is a kind of counting verse in poetry. And so I taught them that, to beat the beats with their hand on the desk. And they liked that because they could make noise. And so we got to the point that as a class and with me, we could actually use the table to beat out the meter of any poem that I chose for them. And they had, I mean, we had a ball. I stayed a week. We had a ball, except for one day when they were a little loud and the principal came and knocked on my door, and he opened the door and he came in, and my students, those students didn't even look at him. They were looking at me to help them beat out the rhythm of the poem. And he just stood there and watched, and he, you know, he didn't say anything, and then he crept out and closed the door, and soon after called me into his office. And I thought, okay, you know, that's it. I'm too loud. My students were too loud. I'm gone. And so he asked me to stay the full semester. That the instructor was not going to be able to come back, and that if I would stay the full semester, he would arrange to pay me and would also give me college credit for having completed that class. And so
That's a story. That's a story.
Yeah.
I love that story. That was
I
just
like
Yeah.
that.
it was just like, I don't know where it came from. It's just,
That
we
would be-
started it, and then they wanted to do that all the time, and then they wanted to learn other forms. And so I finished out the semester, and I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. And I really felt that I was helping them, and they were helping me because they were giving me a different view of teacher, you know. And I thought, yeah, I could teach people how to do this.
That's
Yeah,
like
but
a Conroy story, man, about that is awesome. You need to write that story down, Joy. You need to write that story down.
Well, I haven't even told it to anybody else. So
that was a great story. Like you really just connected. You went to the place that they were at. You saw
Yeah.
the little boys that wanted to make noise. That, you know,
and they did make noise, but we had such a good time.
yeah,
We had
yeah,
such a good time.
that's great. I love it. I love it.
Sir, with
Thank
your
you.
moment, man. I love that story.
I bet
Thank
they
you,
still
guys.
remember you.
Yeah.
I said, I bet they still remember you.
Oh,
I
I
bet they still talk about you.
They do, Mandy. I've thought about that occasionally, and I
You
think,
ever hear from any of them? Do you hear from them?
no. See, I went from teaching at the junior high in Homewood. When I graduated from college, I took a job at a community college, part-time. And after a month, they asked me to be full-time. And so I went from that to teaching college students. And so yeah, that was it. And I stayed there for 28 years.
Oh my gosh, this is such a great story. Well,
Well,
now,
thank you.
thank you. Now I want to hear about what your next book is all about.
Oh no. The next
share
book is
anything?
a secret book. Until I send that proposal off to my agent and hear from her, then, you know, it's just,
Well, I vote for the next one after that. You write one about this teaching. And even if it's just
you
that
know, I
one
never
year-
thought about that, Kathy.
that 1 year teaching those 7th grade boys. Do you know what a gift that would be for teachers first starting out? That would
I never thought of it.
you need yeah, you need to do that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
That's great.
Next time,
Well, do you have any photos from that time period of your life when you did that?
I probably do in some box somewhere, but I don't really have any. I wish that I had been in the group photo that they took at the end of the year, but I was only there for a semester, and so I was only there a short time, and I didn't think to get a group photo or a class photo. I should have, but I just didn't. And but I wonder about those boys all the time.
Is that school
They're
still there?
grown men now, but
Is that school still there?
mhm, the school is still there.
Oh man, you need to write that story, and then we need to all go with you back to that school. I want to see it. I love that story. You know, it's
Thank you.
teachers like you that change kids' lives. So thank you for that, sharing that story. We all got to hear it here tonight. So
I've never shared it before.
well, we're privileged. I mean, I'm so
Thank you.
thankful that you're sharing it with us. And I think you've already done that this week with your first piano story. You know, this is the wonderful thing about having the online book club meeting and by having the daily blogs is because this is an opportunity to have a bigger conversation of those stories because I have to tell you, during this time of COVID, I've learned more about all of you than I did at any girlfriend weekend, or reading the book, or even talking to you. I am learning every day, and it has just made this time very special for me, because this is my only entertainment. I don't get out much, so thank you all. Thank you, Joy. Boy, how did you get that name?
Joy?
Mhm.
I don't have a clue. My mother said she liked it. And so that's how she named me Joy.
Well, the reason why I asked is when I was in college, one of my roommates, her name was Gay, and her sister's name was Joy, and she had another sister named Mary, Merry. And
Ah,
I just thought that is so cool. But it was really awkward for me in the 1970s saying, "This is my roommate, Gay." So your roommate's gay? It was just like, and I go,
yeah.
"You tired of it?" She goes, "No, my mother named me that because, it had a deeper meaning than that. And people can be silly and, but
All right.
she loved her name and I loved her name too. She was a wonderful person. So, well, that would be something. There's no family member you could ever find out of how you got that name, Joy?
I don't think so.
Where were you
I'm
born?
not
What time of the year were you born?
in June. Today is my birthday.
Oh my God! It's your birthday. Okay, we have to sing happy birthday.
I was just about to do that.
Okay. At the count of 3. Happy birthday.
Birthday to you.
Happy
Birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you. Happy
Happy
birthday, dear
Joy.
Joy.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you. And many more.
Thank you.
Yay.
I
What a
love it.
gift for us. What a gift for us this has been. And it's your birthday. Well, I
Yeah.
hope we didn't take you away from your family celebration.
They'll get over it.
Well, we're even doubly honored tonight that you chose to spend your birthday with us. So we celebrate your day and we celebrate your life of giving, being a giver and being a teacher and bringing us these great stories. Thank you so much. Any other things we want to talk about before we call this a night?
I want to
Just
tell a funny
appreciate
story.
Okay.
Go
good.
ahead. Go ahead, Kathleen.
So the blonde and the redhead and roomed at Betsy's Landing in 2020. Kathy Ramsberger was over at the other, and I'll clean it up, Joyce. So
Thank
I
you,
go to get
Kathleen.
I know
I
what
go to
you're
get
gonna
me-
say.
Uh-oh.
So I go to get in the shower and I can't find how to, it's a bathtub in the shower deal, and I cannot find the nozzle to get the water to come down. And I'm like, okay. And I start panicking. And I'm like, I'm in here and and I find Joy. Joy, can you come help me? So, here's Joy. It took a woman with a doctorate. Okay. Joy comes in
Oh my God.
and we are looking around, and really, she couldn't find it either. There was no obvious nozzle. And all of a sudden, I'm panicking. She's trying to help me. We had to be over at the event center.
Kathleen is in the shower. In the shower.
With the shower curtain and, hiding. And then all of a sudden I look up and Joy, it was almost up to the ceiling. There was a sign, not here and not here, way over here where nobody would look, telling you how to get the nozzle. And it was this hidden thing underneath the, what do you call it? Where you slide it. So, oh my God. So that was our secret story, which is now not secret in public, but we laughed so hard. And by then I thought, I've traveled with Joy, I've roomed with Joy. Joy knows.
I've been naked with Joy.
Showered with joy.
Yeah.
It's these.
Joy and I have no secrets.
And where
That's a good one.
Where was this that this happened?
It was at Bessie's Landing in Jefferson, Texas.
Ah! During girlfriend weekend?
Right.
That reminds me of the time River Jordan got safety pinned into a dress, and then when she went back to her room, she couldn't get out of it. She had to sleep in it all night long, this old prom dress, because she couldn't get out of it.
Oh my God.
Well, some Shelley Rushing Tomlinson pinned her in it because the zipper wasn't working right or whatever. So when she went back to her room, she'd forgotten. And then she's sleeping. I just can imagine sleeping in a prom dress, I love these stories. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you, Kathy. It's been so much fun.
Happy birthday.
So much fun.
Thank
Happy birthday indeed. So you'll have to have some cake and keep sharing the love. We'll be sure and give you a shout out tomorrow on Breathless Bubbles and Books. So please join, you guys. She's telling all these stories that we have never heard before. I'm loving them. And I can't tell you how I've really enjoyed this book club meeting tonight. How about you guys?
Oh, it's been
That
great.
was a good one.
The
It's
best.
been great. Thank
The
all
best.
of you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joy.
Well,
Okay. Thank you, Mandy.
Birthday.
thank you,
Great,
Mandy, for
great.
always getting the little posts and everything up. And also do check out the Reading Nation magazine. Our 3rd issue is up. It's amazing.
It's lovely.
If you go
Oh, thank you.
search for the little hidden tiara, there's going to be something special. And there's only
Lean was.
All right.
well, only one person here has found it, and that was Eileen. Eileen's already found it. So we're limiting it to 20 people. We're going to have a drawing, and I'm going to be sending something out. So we're trying to get everybody to read everybody's page and to share, because she's really put a lot of work into this magazine, and all of you guys are getting featured in there every month. And I think you've done an outstanding job, Mandy. I can't thank
She
you.
really has.
You have,
Oh.
Mandy.
Thank you.
Good job, Mandy.
Thanks.
Before we go, I just want to share with you, if any of you know of any book clubs, we are offering for the month of summer a special package to our annual event, which we're now calling the International Book Club Convention, because we're so beyond just being a girlfriend weekend. But for any book club who joins our book club, they can come, all of them, no matter how many people are in the book club, for $4.99. So if you have 30 people in your book club, they all get to come. We're trying to get more and more readers to our table for all of you authors. So it's up on our website, share, share, share. And then
Okay.
Paul Roberson is doing a new special, wonderful thing for authors through our newsletter. Mandy, can you give the details a little bit more about that?
You might be better at it. Y'all, it's past my bedtime.
I know.
I'm sorry.
But basically, for $100 a month, he will do a story in the newsletter on you. You will get for a month a special on our blog page, a special banner on the website. And then Mandy, were we going to do something in the magazine too? It's a really good deal. For $100, it's going to get you out there in a big way. What I'm trying to do, folks, is I've been going for 20 years and all these people have volunteered to help me. I'm now trying to help them make a living. So Mandy's getting the money from the magazine, Paul's getting the money from the newsletter, and I'm getting the money from the membership. So let's get people on board. We are the largest meeting and discussing book club in the world, and our convention is going to be awesome this year because everybody's coming this year. We've had more signups already because we did the 99 special, but for it's $2.99 for an individual to come to Girlfriend Weekend, but it's $4.99 for a whole chapter to come. And I have had some chapters that have 30, 40, men and women involved. So this will be up all summer. And if you have any questions, Mandy, thepulpwoodqueen@gmail.com. And of course, me, I'm thepulpwoodqueen@gmail.com. And thank you all for joining us. We're so looking forward to all of our times together. Thank you, Joy. I look forward to your post tomorrow. Try to get it up before 9.
I will.
Because after 9 o'clock, I get so busy with all the stuff I'm doing, and I'm actually waiting for a call for me to go. I sold my trailer, so it had to be repaired, and so the buyer and I are going to be traveling to go get it. So that could be any minute now, and I don't know when it's going to happen. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you hopefully this Saturday night when we do our book and film club. Robert Waltney and I are going to be pretty in pink because we're doing the Molly Ringwald movie, and you just never know what we're going to wear or what we're going to say. So
Okay.
if you join our book club, please join. If you have any messages for me, just email me. Thank you all. And hopefully everybody who's watching this on my Kathy L. Murphy channel, please subscribe because I've only got 140 people and I've got, I think, about 4,000 members of the Pulpwood Queen. So we're trying to get more people on board because we got some big plans of some other things coming up. So we want you all on board and all being on the same page. So it's all about the story. And tonight it was The Madwoman of Preacher's Cove by Joy Ross Davis. Order your book today.
Thank you so much.
Tomorrow on Breathless.
Birthday girl.
It's all about the story. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.